German Shepherd. Was ignored in the middle of a busy street. What baby did next? Left everyone in tears. What happened next will absolutely break your heart and restore your faith in humanity. Before we begin this incredible story, hit that like button, share with someone who loves dogs, and let us know in the comments where you're watching from right now. The morning traffic in downtown Riverside City moved like a river of metal and glass, each car carrying someone too busy to notice anything beyond their windshield. It was 8:30 a.m. on a Monday, the worst possible time to be anywhere near the intersection of Main and Commerce Street. Sofia Martinez knew this, which was why her fingers drummed anxiously against her 5-year-old son's small hand as they hurried along the crowded sidewalk. "Lucas, baby, we need to walk faster," Sofia said, her voice tight with the familiar stress of running late. Her nursing shift at Riverside General started in 20 minutes, and they still had 3 blocks to go before reaching Happy Hearts Daycare. "Mommy's already late, and Mrs. Jennifer is waiting for you." Lucas Martinez was small for his 5 years, with dark brown eyes that seemed to see everything and understand even more. His little legs worked hard to keep up with his mother's rushed pace, his dinosaur backpack bouncing with each step. But suddenly, without warning, those little legs stopped moving entirely. "Lucas!" Sofia's voice cracked with frustration as she felt the sudden resistance. "We don't have time for this. Come on, sweetheart." But Lucas wasn't looking at her. His head was tilted slightly the way it did when he was listening to something only he could hear. His eyes had gone wide, staring at something across the street, past the endless stream of honking cars and rushing people. "Mommy," he whispered, his voice so soft she almost missed it over the city noise. "Someone's crying." Sofia felt her stomach tighten. Not this again. Lucas had always been different, special in ways that sometimes frightened her. Last month, he'd insisted their neighbor's cat was sick 2 days before it collapsed. 3 weeks ago, he'd found an injured sparrow in their backyard that no one else had noticed, hidden under leaves. And now, standing on this impossibly busy street corner, he was doing it again. "Honey, it's just the traffic," Sofia said, trying to pull him gently forward. "Sometimes cars sound like—" "No!" Lucas yanked his hand free with surprising force. "Not cars, Mommy. Look." He pointed one small finger toward the intersection, where 4 lanes of traffic merged in a chaos of morning commuters. At first, Sofia saw nothing unusual. Cars stopping and starting, people crossing when the light changed, the usual urban dance. But then her eyes caught something that made her heart skip. There, in the middle of the intersection, barely visible between the swerving vehicles, was a large German Shepherd. The dog wasn't moving, just lying there as cars honked and veered around it, drivers cursing out their windows before speeding away. "Oh my God," Sofia breathed. The dog looked dead, or close to it. Its dark fur was matted and dirty, one front paw bent at an odd angle. But then she saw its chest rise and fall, saw its head lift slightly before dropping back to the hot asphalt. "He's hurt, Mommy," Lucas said, and there were tears in his voice now. "He's hurt and scared, and nobody's helping him." Sofia's mind raced. She was already late. Her supervisor had warned her about punctuality, and getting involved in this would make her even later. Plus, it was dangerous. That dog could be rabid, aggressive, unpredictable. She couldn't let Lucas anywhere near it. "Sweetheart, I know it's sad, but we can't—" Lucas wasn't listening. He was already stepping off the curb. "Lucas, no!" Sofia screamed, her hand shooting out to grab him, but he twisted away with an agility she didn't know he possessed. Her baby boy, her only child, was walking into 4 lanes of morning traffic. Time seemed to slow down and speed up simultaneously. Sofia heard her own scream mix with the screech of brakes. She saw Lucas's small form moving between the cars, his dinosaur backpack the only bright spot in the sea of gray and black vehicles. Drivers slammed on their horns, some rolling down windows to shout, but Lucas kept walking with a calmness that defied logic. "Somebody stop him!" Sofia cried, starting to run after him, but a man in a business suit grabbed her arm. "Lady, you'll get yourself killed! Call 911! But Sofia wrenched free, her mother's instinct overriding every rational thought. She darted into the street, dodging a taxi that missed her by inches. Around them, the intersection was descending into chaos. Cars were stopping at odd angles, drivers getting out to see what was happening, phones appearing in dozens of hands to record the scene. Lucas had reached the dog. The German Shepherd lifted its massive head as the boy approached, and Sophia saw its lips pull back, revealing teeth that could tear through bone. "Lucas, don't touch it!" she screamed, still fighting through the maze of stopped cars. But Lucas was already kneeling down, his small hand extended toward the injured animal. The dog's amber eyes locked onto the boy's face, and something passed between them, something Sophia couldn't understand but could somehow feel in the air. "It's okay," Lucas whispered, his voice carrying despite the chaos around them. "I'm not going to hurt you. I know you're scared." The dog's growl died in its throat. Its ears, which had been flat against its skull, slowly relaxed. And then, impossibly, its tail gave the smallest wag. Sophia finally reached them, dropping to her knees beside her son, her hands shaking as she checked him for injuries. "Lucas, baby, are you okay? You can't just run into traffic like that." But Lucas wasn't paying attention to her. His small hand was now resting on the dog's head, and he was leaning, close, whispering something she couldn't hear. The dog's eyes were closed, its breathing labored but calmer than before. "His name is Duke," Lucas said suddenly, looking up at his mother with those two knowing eyes. "He told me his name is Duke." Sophia felt a chill run down her spine, despite the morning heat. "Dogs don't tell people their names, honey." "He did," Lucas insisted. "He's showing me pictures in my head." "There was a fire, Mommy, a big fire, and his family had to leave really fast. He got confused and couldn't find them." Around them, a crowd was gathering. Some people were filming, others were shouting about calling animal control, and a few were arguing about whether the boy should be pulled away from the potentially dangerous animal. But Lucas seemed to exist in a bubble with Duke, unaware of or unconcerned by the commotion. Duke's eyes opened again, focusing on Lucas's face with an intensity that seemed almost human. The dog tried to lift his head, whimpering softly, and that's when Sophia saw the collar partially hidden under his matted fur. It was leather, expensive looking despite its worn condition, and hanging from it was something that made her breath catch, a child's friendship bracelet, the kind kids made at summer camp, woven in purple and pink threads. "Someone loved this dog," she whispered. Lucas nodded, his fingers gently stroking Duke's ears. "Emma loved him. She's 8 years old and has brown hair with a pink hairband. She made him this bracelet for his birthday. They had a party with a special dog cake and everything." "How could you possibly know that?" Sophia asked. But even as the words left her mouth, she remembered all the other times Lucas had known things he shouldn't. The time he'd told her that their elderly neighbor missed her. Peterson was sad because he missed his wife, even though missed her. Peterson always smiled and said he was fine. The time he'd insisted they needed to check on the horses at the nearby stable, just hours before a storm knocked down part of their shelter. "Everybody back up!" A commanding voice cut through the crowd noise. "Police! Clear the intersection!" Officer James Thompson pushed through the crowd, his hand resting on his utility belt as he assessed the scene. He was a large man with graying temples and the kind of presence that made people automatically step back. His eyes took in the stopped traffic, the gathering crowd, the small boy with the injured dog, and his jaw tightened. "Ma'am, you need to get your son away from that animal immediately," he said to Sophia, his tone leaving no room for argument. "He's hurt," Lucas said, looking up at the officer with pleading eyes. "Duke is hurt, and he's lost, and he just wants to find Emma and his family." Officer Thompson's expression softened slightly at the boy's obvious distress, but his stance remained firm. "I understand you want to help, son, but this dog could be dangerous. We need to let animal control handle this." As if summoned by his words, a white van with the city's animal control logo pulled up to the intersection. 2 uniformed workers got out, one carrying a catch pole, the other holding what looked like a tranquilizer gun. Duke saw them and immediately tried to stand, his injured paw buckling under him. He let out a low, terrified whine, pressing closer to Lucas. "No!" Lucas wrapped his small arms around Duke's neck. "You can't take him. He's not a bad dog. He's just lost. Kid, that's what the shelter is for," one of the animal control officers said, not unkindly. "We'll take care of him." But Sophia had worked at the hospital long enough to know people who volunteered at the city shelter. She knew what happened to injured dogs with no obvious owners, especially large breeds that required expensive medical care. The thought of this clearly beloved pet being euthanized after surviving whatever trauma had separated him from his family made her stomach turn. "How long do you keep them before—" She couldn't finish the sentence with Lucas listening. 72 hours for strays, the officer replied, understanding her meaning. "But if he's injured and aggressive, could be sooner." "He's not aggressive!" Lucas cried, tears streaming down his face now. "He's just scared. Please, please don't take him away. His family is looking for him. I know they are." The crowd, which had been merely curious before, began to murmur. Some people were on their phones, and Sophia heard fragments of conversation. "Poor kid. That dog does look pretty calm with him. Anyone know if there were any fires recently? This is going viral already. Look how many views." A woman in her 30s pushed forward, her phone in her hand. "Excuse me," she said, addressing Officer Thompson. "I'm Maria Chen. I work in tech. If the boy says the dog's name is Duke and mentions a fire, I could search social media for missing dog posts. Might help identify the owner." Officer Thompson looked skeptical. "Ma'am, we have procedures." "What harm could it do to check?" Maria interrupted. "It'll take 5 minutes." Lucas looked up at the woman with hope shining in his tear-stained face. His family's last name is Anderson. They lived in a white house with a big tree in front. Emma had a purple bedroom with stars on the ceiling. Maria's fingers flew across her phone screen. The crowd pressed closer, everyone suddenly invested in the fate of this dog and the strange boy who claimed to know his story. "You can't seriously be buying this," Officer Thompson said, but even he was watching Maria's phone. "Wait," Maria said suddenly. "Oh my God, look at this." She held up her phone, showing a Facebook post from 3 weeks ago. The headline read, "Missing. German Shepherd named Duke, lost during Oakwood fire evacuation. Family devastated. Reward offered." The crowd gasped collectively. Sophia felt her knees go weak. The post included a photo of Duke, healthy and grooming, sitting next to a young girl with brown hair and a pink hairband. The girl had her arms wrapped around the dog's neck, and both were wearing party hats. The caption read, "Duke's 5th birthday party, 1 week before the fire. Emma made him a friendship bracelet that he never takes off." "That's them!" Lucas exclaimed, bouncing despite his position on the ground. "That's Emma and Duke! I told you." Officer Thompson took the phone, studying the post carefully. His professional skepticism was warring with the evidence in front of him. "This could be a coincidence?" "Look at the collar," Sophia pointed out. "The friendship bracelet is right there in the photo." The animal control officers had stopped their approach, uncertain how to proceed. The crowd was growing larger by the minute, and someone shouted, "Let the kid keep the dog until you find the family." "That's not how this works," Officer Thompson said, but his voice lacked conviction. Maria was still scrolling through her phone. "The Andersons. Here. They're staying at the Riverside Emergency Housing Complex. That's the temporary housing for fire evacuees. It's only about 10 miles from here." "Call them," someone in the crowd shouted. "I am," Maria said, finding a contact number on one of the posts. She put the phone on speaker, and the crowd fell silent as it rang. Once, twice, 3 times. "Hello?" A woman's voice, tired and strained. "Mrs. Anderson? My name is Maria Chen. I'm calling about Duke." There was a sharp intake of breath. "Duke? You've seen Duke? Is he alive?" "He's alive," Maria said, and her voice cracked slightly. "He's injured, but he's alive. We're at the intersection of Main and Commerce in downtown Riverside." A scream erupted from the phone, followed by crying and a young girl's voice shouting, "Duke? They found Duke. Mommy, is Duke okay?" "We're coming right now," Mrs. Anderson said, her voice thick with tears. "Please, please don't let them take him anywhere." "We're coming. Tell him we're coming. Oh God, Emma, get your shoes. David, get the car keys." The connection ended, and the crowd erupted in cheers and applause. Lucas looked up at Officer Thompson with eyes that seemed far too wise for his age. "See? I told you his family was looking for him. He walked so far to find them. His paws hurt really bad, and he's thirsty and his leg is hurt, but he kept walking because he loves Emma." Officer Thompson ran a hand over his face, clearly overwhelmed by the turn of events. This This is highly irregular. Please, Sophia found herself saying. Can't we just wait? The family is on their way. The officer looked at the crowd, at the phones recording everything, at the small boy still protecting the injured dog, and finally at Duke himself, who was watching everything with those intelligent amber eyes. Animal control, stand down, he said finally. We'll wait for the family. But the dog needs medical attention. Is anyone here a vet? I am, a voice called from the crowd. An older man pushed forward Dr. Robert Kim, retired veterinarian. I can examine him if you'll allow it. And so, in the middle of one of Riverside City's busiest intersections, with traffic backed up for blocks and hundreds of people watching, a makeshift emergency veterinary station was created. Dr. Kim knelt beside Duke, his experienced hands gently examining the injured paw and checking vital signs. Dehydration is severe, he announced. The paw is infected, probably from walking on it for days. He needs fluids immediately. I have a medical kit in my car, someone volunteered. I have water bottles, another person added. Lucas never left Duke's side, his small hand constantly touching the dog, whispering things only Duke could hear. And Duke, despite his pain and exhaustion, kept his eyes fixed on the boy's face with complete trust. How did you really know all those things? Sophia asked her son quietly while Dr. Kim worked. Lucas looked up at her with those impossibly deep eyes. He showed me, Mommy. When I touched him, I could see pictures in my head, like a movie, but made of feelings. I saw Emma crying when she couldn't find him. I saw Duke running back to their house, even though it was all smoke and fire because Emma's special teddy bear was inside. I saw him walking and walking, following Emma's smell, but it got all mixed up because of all the smoke. Sophia wanted to dismiss it as childhood imagination, but she'd seen too much, knew her son too well. Ever since that terrifying day 5 years ago, when Lucas had been born not breathing, when the doctors had worked for 2 long minutes to bring him back, he'd been different, special, connected to something the rest of them couldn't quite reach. The Andersons are almost here, Maria announced, tracking their location on her phone. 5 minutes. Duke's ears perked up slightly as if he understood. He tried again to stand, whimpering with the effort. Easy, boy, Doctor, Kim soothed. Save your strength. He knows, Lucas said confidently. He can feel that Emma is coming. Dogs know these things. They love with their whole hearts, not like people who only love with pieces. The crowd had grown to nearly 200 people now, completely blocking the intersection. Officer Thompson had called for backup to manage traffic, rerouting cars around the scene. News vans were arriving, reporters pushing through to get the story of the boy and the dog that had stopped downtown traffic. There! Someone shouted. A blue minivan! The vehicle screeched to a halt at the edge of the crowd, and before it had fully stopped, the back door flew open. A young girl with brown hair and a pink hairband jumped out, her face streaked with tears. Duke! Emma screamed, her voice carrying over everything else. Duke! I'm here! Duke's whole body went rigid. His head shot up, his eyes scanning desperately through the crowd. And then he saw her. The sound that came from Duke's throat wasn't quite a bark or a howl, but something in between. Something that spoke of 3 weeks of searching, of pain and hunger and never giving up hope. He struggled to his feet, his injured paw forgotten, his whole body shaking with the effort to reach his girl. Emma was running, pushing through the crowd, her parents right behind her. Duke! My Duke! Lucas stepped back, a small smile on his face, as Emma dropped to her knees beside her dog. Duke collapsed against her, his whole body shuddering as Emma wrapped her arms around him, both of them crying in their own ways. I'm sorry, Emma sobbed into his fur. I'm so sorry we left you. We came back, but the firefighters wouldn't let us look for you. I'm so sorry, Duke. I love you so much. Duke was licking her face frantically, his tail wagging despite his exhaustion, small whines of joy escaping him. The friendship bracelet on his collar caught the morning sun, purple and pink threads still bright despite everything. Mrs. Anderson fell to her knees beside them, her hands shaking as she touched Duke's face. Oh, Duke, our brave, stupid, wonderful dog. You came looking for us. Mr. Anderson was crying openly, not caring who saw. We searched everywhere, he said to the crowd. Every shelter, every vet, every online post. Emma hasn't... She hasn't been the same without him. He walked 50 miles, Doctor, Kim said quietly, having calculated the distance from Oakwood to downtown Riverside. With an infected paw and no food or water. That's extraordinary. Emma looked up suddenly, her eyes searching the crowd until they found Lucas. You saved him, she said. You're the boy who saved Duke. Lucas shrugged, suddenly shy with all the attention. He saved himself. I just helped people see him. But Emma wasn't having it. She stood up, marched over to Lucas, and hugged him fiercely. Thank you, she whispered. Thank you for hearing him when nobody else did. The crowd erupted in applause again, and Sophia found herself crying along with everyone else. Her son, her special, unusual, wonderful son, had done something extraordinary, not with strength or force, but with empathy and an open heart. We need to get Duke to a proper veterinary hospital, Doctor, Kim said. He needs IV fluids, antibiotics, and that paw needs immediate attention. Whatever it costs, Mr. Anderson said immediately. Whatever he needs. I'll cover it, a voice called from the crowd. Then another. I'll help too. Within minutes, people were pulling out cash, writing checks, offering to transfer money digitally. Maria quickly set up a crowdfunding page on her phone, and donations started pouring in from people watching the live streams. As they prepared to move Duke to the Andersons' van, Lucas approached the dog one more time. He knelt down, placing his small hand on Duke's head, and closed his eyes. Duke's tail wagged weakly, and he licked Lucas's hand. What did you tell him? Emma asked. Lucas smiled. I told him he's going home, and that you never stopped looking for him, and that his teddy bear rescue mission was very brave. Emma's eyes widened. How did you know about Mr. Fluffles? I didn't tell anyone Duke went back for him. Duke told me, Lucas said simply. He said Mr. Fluffles smelled like you, and he couldn't leave him behind. As the Andersons carefully loaded Duke into their van, with Dr. Kim accompanying them to the veterinary hospital, the crowd began to disperse. But the story was far from over. Videos of Lucas walking through traffic, of his connection with Duke, of the emotional reunion were already spreading across social media platforms. #Boy who speaks to dogs was trending within an hour. Officer Thompson approached Sophia and Lucas as they prepared to leave. His stern expression had softened considerably. Your boy did something special today, he said. I've been on the force for 20 years, and I've never seen anything like it. He's always been special, Sophia said, pulling Lucas close. Mom, can we visit Duke at the hospital? Lucas asked. Of course, baby. As they walked back toward the sidewalk, Sophia's phone rang. It was her supervisor at the hospital. Her stomach clenched, preparing for the reprimand about being late. Sophia? I just saw the news. Was that really Lucas? My God, what an incredible story. Take the day off, paid. That boy of yours is a hero. Sophia thanked her supervisor and hung up, shaking her head in amazement. 3 hours ago, she'd been worried about being 5 minutes late. Now her son was being called a hero on national news. Mommy, Lucas said as they walked, his small hand in hers. There are more dogs that need help. What do you mean, honey? Lucas's face took on that distant expression again. Duke is showing me. Not lost dogs, but sad dogs. Dogs in shelters that people don't see because they're scared or old or not pretty. Duke says we should help them too. Sophia looked down at her remarkable son, this child who had died for 2 minutes at birth and came back different, special, connected to something beyond ordinary understanding. Then we'll help them, she said. We'll find a way. As they walked away from the intersection that had been transformed into a place of miracles, neither of them noticed the figure watching from a coffee shop window, an elderly woman with sharp eyes and silver hair, who had recorded everything on her phone, but not for social media. Dr. Sarah Walsh, retired animal behaviorist and researcher, had just witnessed something that challenged everything she thought she knew about human-animal communication. She pulled out a small notebook and began writing. Subject appears to be approximately 5 years old. Demonstrated apparent telepathic connection with injured canine. Knew specific details impossible to determine through normal observation. Must investigate further. Meanwhile, at the veterinary hospital, Duke was receiving the medical attention he desperately needed. Emma refused to leave his side, holding his paw while the IV delivered life-saving fluids. The friendship bracelet on his collar had been carefully removed and cleaned, then tied around Emma's wrist for safekeeping until Duke recovered. "The infection is severe," the veterinarian told the Andersons, "but he's strong. The fact that he survived 3 weeks and walked this far, it's remarkable. Dogs don't usually show this level of determination unless they have something incredibly important driving them." "He had Emma," Mrs. Anderson said simply. "They've been inseparable since she was 5, and he was a puppy. When she was diagnosed with autism, Duke became her anchor to the world. He understood her in ways even we couldn't." Mr. Anderson added, "Emma didn't speak for 6 months after her diagnosis. Then one day Duke did something funny, and she laughed, first sound she'd made in half a year. After that, she started talking to him, then eventually to us again." The vet smiled. "The bond between children and dogs can be extraordinary. But what that boy did today, knowing Duke's name, his story, I've never seen anything like it." Back at their modest apartment, Lucas sat by the window, his eyes unfocused, seeing something beyond the glass. Sophia watched him with a mixture of pride and concern. Her son had a gift. That much was undeniable. But gifts like this came with responsibility, and she worried about the weight of it on such small shoulders. "What are you thinking about, baby?" she asked. "All the dogs," Lucas replied. "Duke is showing me all the dogs that need help. There are so many, Mommy. In shelters, on streets, in bad places where people are mean to them. They're all talking, but nobody listens." "You listen," Sophia said, sitting beside him. "But I'm just one kid," Lucas said, and for the first time, he sounded like the 5-year-old he was. "How can I help them all?" Sophia pulled him into her lap, holding him close. "You don't have to help them all, sweetheart. But today you helped Duke, and that changed everything for him and Emma. Sometimes saving one is enough to start something bigger." Lucas nodded, leaning against his mother. "Duke says thank you, by the way. He says you're a good mommy for letting me help." Sophia kissed the top of his head, wondering not for the first time what kind of extraordinary path lay ahead for her unusual child. The boy who heard what others couldn't, who saw connections invisible to adult eyes, who had walked into traffic without fear because a dog needed help. As the sun set over Riverside City, casting long shadows across the streets, the intersection of Main and Commerce looked exactly as it had that morning. But for everyone who had witnessed what happened there, it would never be the same. It had become a place where impossible things proved possible, where love conquered logic, where a small boy's empathy had stopped a city and saved a life. The story was already spreading beyond Riverside, shared and reshared thousands of times. News outlets were calling it the miracle on Main Street. But for Lucas, it wasn't a miracle. It was just listening with his heart instead of his ears, seeing with more than his eyes, understanding that love doesn't need words to be real. That night, as Lucas slept, he dreamed of Duke. But not just Duke, hundreds of dogs, all connected like lights on a string, each one carrying a story, a hope, a need for understanding. And in the dream, Lucas wasn't alone. Emma was there too, and other children, all of them glowing with the same strange light, all of them able to hear what the adults had forgotten how to hear. "We're the bridge," Dream Duke told him, his voice clear and strong, not limited by the barrier between species. "You and others like you. You're the bridge between our worlds, and bridges aren't meant to save everyone. They're meant to help others learn to cross on their own." The dream stayed with Lucas even after he woke the next morning, clinging to him like morning mist. He sat at the breakfast table, pushing cereal around his bowl, while Sophia got ready for her hospital shift. She kept glancing at him with that worried expression she'd been wearing since yesterday. "You okay, baby?" she asked, adjusting her scrubs. "You've been quiet." Lucas looked up at her with those deep brown eyes that seemed older than they should be. "Duke showed me something last night, in my dream, but it wasn't really a dream." Sophia paused, her hand on her coffee mug. After yesterday, she'd stopped dismissing Lucas's unusual statements. "What did he show you?" "The bad place," Lucas whispered, and his whole body shivered. "Where dogs have to fight. Duke knows about it because he was almost taken there once, before the Andersons adopted him. The coffee mug slipped from Sophia's hand, shattering on the kitchen floor. What? But before Lucas could explain, his eyes went wide and unfocused. That look she'd seen yesterday when he was receiving something, hearing something beyond normal perception. His small body went rigid. "They're coming," he said, his voice strange and distant. "The men who wanted Duke. They're angry he got away. They're coming here." Sophia's blood turned to ice. "Lucas, what are you talking about? Who's coming?" "The ones who steal dogs," Lucas said, tears starting to roll down his cheeks. "Duke is warning me. He can feel them getting closer. They have a white van, and they've been watching our building since last night." Sophia ran to the window, her heart pounding. There, parked across the street in a spot that hadn't been there yesterday, was a white van with tinted windows. It looked like 1,000 other delivery vans, except for the fact that it had been sitting there, engine running, for who knows how long. "Get your shoes," Sophia said, her voice sharp with fear. "We're leaving. Now." They rushed down the apartment building's back stairs, Sophia carrying Lucas, despite his protests that he could walk. Her mind was racing. This couldn't be real. Dog-fighting rings? Men coming after her son because he had helped rescue a dog? It sounded like something from a bad movie, not their quiet life in Riverside. But as they reached the parking garage, she heard footsteps echoing behind them. Heavy, purposeful footsteps. "Mommy, faster," Lucas whispered, his arms tight around her neck. Sophia fumbled with her car keys, her hands shaking. The footsteps were getting closer. She yanked open the back door, practically throwing Lucas inside. "Mrs. Martinez," a man's voice, smooth and professional. "We'd like to talk to you about your son." Sophia spun around. 2 men stood there, both in dark suits, looking like insurance salesmen, except for their eyes. Cold, calculating eyes that reminded her of sharks. "I don't know you," she said, trying to keep her voice steady. "Please leave us alone." The taller man smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Your son has a remarkable gift. We represent certain interests that would like to study his abilities. It could be very lucrative for you." "We're not interested," Sophia said, moving toward the driver's door. The shorter man stepped forward, blocking her path. "I don't think you understand. Your son interfered with a significant business operation yesterday. That dog he helped? It was valuable property." "Duke belongs to the Andersons," Sophia said firmly. "Everyone saw the reunion. It's all over the news." "The news," the tall man said softly, "can be edited. Stories can change. That dog was meant for something more important than being a little girl's pet." Lucas's voice came from inside the car, small but clear. "You wanted Duke to fight. You steal dogs and make them hurt each other while people watch and bet money." Both men's faces changed, the fake friendliness disappearing entirely. "Smart kid," the short one said, "too smart for his own good." "We should continue this conversation somewhere more private," the tall man said, reaching for the car door handle. "Help!" Sophia screamed at the top of her lungs. "Somebody help us!" Her scream echoed through the parking garage. The men hesitated, looking around. That moment of hesitation was all Sophia needed. She dove into the driver's seat, slamming the locks just as the short man grabbed for the door. "Drive, Mommy!" Lucas shouted. Sophia started the engine and threw the car in reverse, tires squealing. The men jumped back, and she saw the tall one pulling out his phone, probably calling for backup. She spun the wheel, racing toward the exit. As they burst out of the garage into morning sunlight, Sophia's mind was spinning. Where could they go? The police? But what if these men had connections there too? The hospital? Too public, too easy to find them. "Call Emma's family," Lucas said from the back seat. "Duke says they'll help us." With shaking fingers, Sophia found the Andersons' number that Maria Chen had shared with everyone yesterday. The phone rang twice before Mrs. Anderson answered. "Hello? Mrs. Anderson. This is Sophia Martinez, Lucas's mom, from yesterday. We need help. Someone's following us, men who wanted Duke for something bad, and they're after Lucas now and—" "Come to our hotel," Mrs. Anderson interrupted, her voice immediately serious. "Riverside Emergency Housing, Building C, Room 247. I'll call security to expect you." Sophia glanced in the rearview mirror. The white van was 3 cars behind them, following every turn. "They're following us." "Then go to the veterinary hospital first," Mrs. Anderson said quickly. It's public, has security cameras. We'll meet you there. David's already there with Emma and Duke. Sophia took a hard right, tires protesting. The van followed. She ran a yellow light that turned red just as she passed through. The van ran the red, causing other cars to honk angrily. "Mommy, I'm scared," Lucas said, and he sounded exactly like the 5-year-old he was. "I know, baby. We're going to be okay. We're almost there." The veterinary hospital appeared ahead, its large parking lot already half full despite the early hour. Sophia pulled right up to the main entrance, ignoring the no parking signs. She grabbed Lucas and ran inside, not looking back to see if the men were following. The reception area was bright and busy, full of people with various pets. Sophia rushed to the desk, Lucas clinging to her hand. "The Andersons!" she gasped. "We need to find the Andersons. Their dog Duke is here." The receptionist looked concerned at Sophia's obvious distress. "Room 12, down the hall. Are you all right? Should I call security?" "Yes," Sophia said. "Please, there are men following us." She didn't wait to explain further, pulling Lucas down the hallway. They burst into room 12 to find Duke lying on an examination table, an IV still in his leg, with Emma sitting beside him and Mr. Anderson standing nearby. Emma looked up, her face brightening. "Lucas! You came to visit Duke." But her smile faded when she saw their faces. Mr. Anderson immediately moved toward them. "What happened?" "Men came to our apartment," Sophia said breathlessly. "They said Lucas interfered with their business, that Duke was valuable property. They tried to grab us in the parking garage." Mr. Anderson's face darkened. "Dogfighters!" "Has to be. There have been rumors for years about a ring operating in this area, stealing pets and strays for their sick games." Duke suddenly lifted his head, a low growl rumbling in his chest. His eyes were fixed on the door. Lucas moved closer to him, placing his small hand on the dog's side. "They're here," Lucas whispered. "Duke can smell them. They're in the building." Mr. Anderson pulled out his phone. "I'm calling the police." "No!" Lucas said sharply. "Duke says some of the police work for the bad men. Call Detective Ramirez. She's different. She's been trying to catch them." "How does he know about Detective Ramirez?" Mrs. Anderson asked, having just arrived. "I don't know," Sophia said. "But yesterday he knew everything about Duke, so maybe we should listen." Mr. Anderson was already searching for the detective's number when the door opened. The two men from the parking garage stood there, but now they'd been joined by a third, an older man with silver hair and an expensive suit that screamed money and power. "Well," the older man said, his voice cultured and cold, "the boy who talks to dogs. How fascinating." Duke's growl grew louder, and despite his injuries, he tried to stand. Emma wrapped her arms around him, holding him down, but her eyes were frightened. "You're not supposed to be in here," Mr. Anderson said, moving to block the men from entering further. "This is a private room." The silver-haired man smiled. "Alexander Monarch. I own this building, among other things. I can go wherever I please." Sophia felt her heart sink. Monarch? She'd heard that name whispered in the hospital break room, always in connection with generous donations, but also strange conditions and requirements. He had his fingers in everything in Riverside. "What do you want?" she asked, pulling Lucas behind her. Monarch's eyes fixed on Lucas with an intensity that made Sophia's skin crawl. "Your son has a gift, a remarkable ability to communicate with animals. Do you have any idea how valuable that could be? The applications are endless. Military, security, entertainment." "Entertainment," Mr. Anderson said with disgust. "You mean your dog fighting ring?" Monarch's smile never wavered. "That's a serious accusation, Mr. Anderson. I hope you have proof. Otherwise, that could be considered slander." "Duke is proof," Emma said suddenly, her voice shaking but determined. "He remembers you. He remembers the place with cages underground where dogs cry all the time." Everyone turned to look at the 8-year-old girl. She was pressing her face against Duke's fur, tears streaming down her cheeks. "I can hear him too," she whispered. "Not like Lucas can, but a little bit, ever since he came back. He shows me things when I'm really quiet and really still. Terrible things." Monarch's expression flickered, just for a moment, showing something darker underneath the polished exterior. "Children have such vivid imaginations." "It's not imagination." Lucas stepped out from behind his mother, his small face fierce with determination. Duke knows about the farmhouse with the red door. He knows about the basement with 20 cages. He knows about the dogs that didn't survive, the ones you threw away like garbage. The room went very still. Monarch's men shifted slightly, hands moving toward their jackets in a way that suggested weapons. "That's enough," Monarch said, his voice dropping the pretense of friendliness. "Mrs. Martinez, you're going to bring your son with me. We're going to have a private conversation about his future." "Over my dead body," Sophia said. "That can be arranged," one of Monarch's men said quietly. Duke suddenly let out a bark, loud and sharp. Then another, and another. The sound was picked up by other dogs in the hospital. From every room, every kennel, dogs began barking in unison. "What the hell?" one of Monarch's men muttered. Lucas's eyes had gone wide and unfocused again. "They're coming," he said. "All of them." Duke called them. Through the window, Sophia could see something impossible happening. Dogs were appearing in the parking lot, not just a few, but dozens. They came from all directions, some with leashes dragging behind them, others clearly strays, all moving with purpose toward the veterinary hospital. "This is insane," Monarch said, but for the first time, he sounded uncertain. The door burst open and Detective Jessica Ramirez entered, her badge held high and her hand on her service weapon. "Alexander Monarch, you're under arrest for operating an illegal animal fighting ring, racketeering, and conspiracy." Monarch laughed. "Detective, you have no evidence and no jurisdiction here. I'll have your badge for this." "Actually," Detective Ramirez said, pulling out her phone, "I have quite a bit of evidence, including a recording of everything you just said in this room, transmitted directly to my colleagues at the FBI. Did you really think you could threaten a child in a veterinary hospital and not have someone notice?" She held up her phone, showing a recording app that had been running for the past 10 minutes. "Mrs. Anderson called me the moment the Martinez family arrived in distress. I've been listening to everything." Monarch's face went pale. His men looked at each other uncertainly. "Additionally," Detective Ramirez continued, "we executed a search warrant on your Riverside property 20 minutes ago. We've found the underground facility, the cages, and 5 dogs in various states of injury. Your staff is already in custody, and they're being very cooperative." "You had no probable cause for that warrant," Monarch snarled. "I did after Lucas Martinez provided detailed information about your operation that could only have come from direct knowledge. Information that Duke, a dog we can prove was nearly sold into your fighting ring before being legitimately adopted by the Andersons, somehow communicated to him." "That's ridiculous. No court would believe—" "They don't have to believe the boy can talk to dogs," Detective Ramirez interrupted. "They just have to believe the evidence we found based on his tip, and we found plenty." Outside, more police cars were arriving, their sirens adding to the chaos of barking dogs. The parking lot looked like something from a surreal dream. Dozens of dogs of every breed and size, all sitting in a rough circle around the building, as if standing guard. Monarch made a sudden move toward Lucas, perhaps thinking he could use the boy as a hostage, but Duke moved faster. Despite his injuries, the German Shepherd launched himself off the examination table, landing between Monarch and Lucas with his teeth bared. "Don't," Duke seemed to say with every line of his body. "Not this boy. Not ever." Monarch stepped back, and that was all the opening Detective Ramirez needed. In seconds, she had him in handcuffs, reading him his rights while her backup officers secured his 2 associates. As they were led away, Monarch turned back, his eyes finding Lucas. "This isn't over, boy. You have no idea what you've stumbled into. There are others like me, and they'll be very interested in what you can do." "That sounds like a threat against a minor," Detective Ramirez noted. "Add that to the charges." After the police left with their prisoners, the room felt strangely quiet, despite the continued barking from outside. Duke had collapsed back onto the examination table, his burst of protective energy having exhausted him. Emma was crying quietly into his fur while her parents held each other. Lucas walked slowly to the window, looking out at all the dogs. "They came to help," he said softly. "Duke told them we were in danger, and they all came." "How is this possible?" Sophia asked, sinking into a chair. Her legs felt like jelly now that the immediate danger had passed. Detective Ramirez, who had stayed behind to take statements, looked thoughtful. "I've been a cop for 15 years, and I've seen a lot of strange things, but this, honestly, I don't have an explanation. All I know is that your son provided information that helped us shut down one of the largest dogfighting operations in the state." "There are more," Lucas said, still looking out the window. "Duke knows about more bad places. Other cities, other men like Mr. Monarch. The dogs talk to each other, and they all know." Detective Ramirez knelt down beside Lucas. "Would you be willing to help us find these other places? With your mom's permission, of course." Lucas looked at Sophia, his eyes pleading. Sophia felt the weight of the decision. Her normal, quiet life was over. That much was clear. But looking at her son, this remarkable child who had risked everything to save a dog, she knew there was only one answer. "We'll help," she said, "but Lucas's safety comes first. Always." "I'll personally guarantee it," Detective Ramirez promised. "What your son can do, it's a gift, and it could save a lot of innocent animals." Over the next few hours, as they gave their statements and filled out paperwork, something remarkable happened. The dogs in the parking lot didn't leave. They stayed in their circle, waiting. People came looking for their pets, amazed to find them at the veterinary hospital. Others came to see the phenomenon they'd heard about on social media. #TheDogGuardians was trending nationally. Dr. Robert Kim, the retired veterinarian who had helped Duke at the intersection, arrived to examine some of the dogs who had gathered. "Many of these are strays," he announced, "but they're all calm, all peaceful. In 30 years of practice, I've never seen anything like this." A news crew arrived, then another. The story of the boy who could talk to dogs and had helped. A dogfighting ring was spreading like wildfire, but through it all, Lucas stayed focused on Duke and Emma. "He wants to tell you something," Lucas said to Emma as she sat beside Duke's recovery bed. Emma leaned close to her dog, her hand on his head. For a long moment they stayed like that, girl and dog, connected by something deeper than words. "He says he's sorry he scared me," Emma whispered. "When he disappeared, he says he tried so hard to find us and he knew I'd be sad, but he had to try. He also says," Lucas added, "that you're the bravest girl he knows, and he's proud that you're his person." Emma burst into fresh tears, but they were different now. Healing tears, understanding tears. Mrs. Anderson pulled both children into a hug. "You two have something special," she said, "something the rest of us have forgotten how to see." As the afternoon wore on, a woman appeared in the doorway of Duke's room. She was elderly but sharp-eyed, with silver hair pulled back in a neat bun. Sophia recognized her from somewhere, but couldn't place her. "I'm Dr. Sarah Walsh," the woman said. "I'm a retired animal behaviorist. I was at the intersection yesterday when young Lucas saved Duke. I've been studying human-animal communication for 40 years, and I've never seen anything like what your son can do." She approached Lucas slowly, respectfully, the way you might approach a skittish animal. "I'm not here to study you like a lab rat," she said directly to Lucas, "but I would like to understand. There are theories about interspecies communication, about children who retain abilities that adults lose. You could help us learn so much." Lucas looked at her for a long moment, then glanced at Duke. "Duke says you're okay. He says you helped a dog once when nobody else would. A beagle named Chester, who was scared of everything." Dr. Walsh's eyes widened. "That was 23 years ago. How could you possibly know about Chester?" "The dogs remember," Lucas said simply. "They remember the humans who are kind. They tell each other the stories." Dr. Walsh sat down heavily in a chair, looking stunned. "My God, it's real. It's all real. The collective consciousness theory, the morphic resonance fields. You're tapping into something we've only theorized about?" "I don't understand those big words," Lucas said. "I just listen with my heart instead of my ears." "Out of the mouths of babes, Doctor," Walsh murmured. Then more clearly, "Would you be willing to work with me, Lucas? Not as a test subject, but as a teacher? You could help us understand how to help traumatized animals, how to reunite lost pets with their families more effectively, how to identify abuse cases before they become critical." Sophia stepped forward protectively. "He's 5 years old. He's not going to be anyone's experiment or employee." "Of course not, Doctor," Walsh said quickly. "I'm talking about occasional consultations, always with you present, always at your comfort level. Lucas has a gift that could revolutionize animal welfare, but only if he wants to share it." "I want to help the dogs," Lucas said firmly. and the cats, and the birds, and all the animals that hurt and nobody hears them. That evening, as the sun set over Riverside City, the gathering of dogs finally began to disperse. They left as mysteriously as they had arrived, melting back into the city as if following some unheard signal. But not all of them left. 3 stayed, a scarred pit bull, an elderly golden retriever, and a small terrier mix with one eye. They don't have anywhere to go, Lucas explained. They came to help, but they don't have families. Mr. Anderson looked at his wife. They had one of those silent conversations that long-married couples can have with just their eyes. "We're staying in temporary housing," he said finally. "But when we get back on our feet, when we have a real home again..." Duke could use some friends. Emma's face lit up. "Really? We can keep them?" "If the shelter approves the adoption," Mrs. Anderson said, "and if they want to stay." Lucas walked over to the 3 dogs, kneeling down to their level. He didn't say anything out loud, but all 3 tails started wagging simultaneously. "They want to stay," he announced. "They say Duke told them about Emma, about how she loves with her whole heart. They want to be part of that." Detective Ramirez returned as they were preparing to leave for the evening. "I wanted to update you all," she said. "Monarch is being held without bail. The FBI is taking over the case because it crosses state lines. They've already identified 12 other properties connected to his operation." "What about the dogs at those properties?" Lucas asked anxiously. "Rescue operations are being coordinated as we speak," Detective Ramirez assured him. "Your information is saving lives, Lucas, dozens of them." That night, the Andersons insisted Sophia and Lucas stay with them at the emergency housing. It wasn't much, a 2-bedroom unit meant for disaster victims, but it felt safer than their apartment. As the adults talked quietly about next steps and legal proceedings, Lucas and Emma sat with Duke and the 3 new dogs. "Can you teach me?" Emma asked suddenly. "To hear them better? I can only get pieces, like looking through foggy glass." Lucas thought about it seriously. "I don't know if I can teach it. It just happens. But Duke says you're already learning. Every time you're quiet and really listen, you hear a little more." "When did it start for you?" Emma asked. Lucas was quiet for a moment. "Mommy says when I was born, I didn't breathe for 2 minutes. The doctors had to work really hard to bring me back. After that, I was different. I could feel things others couldn't." "Maybe that's what happened to me, too," Emma said thoughtfully. "Not when I was born, but when they said I had autism. Everyone acted like something was wrong with me, but maybe something was just different. Maybe my brain got rewired to hear different things." It was a profound thought from an 8-year-old, and Lucas nodded solemnly. Different isn't bad. Different is just different. As they prepared for bed, Sophia found herself standing at the window, looking out at the city lights. Her son was sleeping on a cot next to Duke's bed, one hand stretched out to touch the dog's fur. The 3 rescued dogs were curled up nearby, forming a protective circle. Mrs. Anderson joined her at the window. "It must be overwhelming," she said softly. "Finding out your child has this ability." "I always knew he was special," Sophia admitted. "But I don't know how to protect him from people like Monarch. There will be others who want to use his gift for bad things." "But there will be more who want to use it for good," Mrs. Anderson pointed out. "Look what he's already accomplished. He saved Duke, exposed a fighting ring, and brought together a community of people who care. That's not nothing." "He's 5, Sophia said, her voice breaking slightly. "He should be worried about kindergarten and cartoons, not traumatized dogs and criminal organizations." "But he's not a normal 5-year-old, Mrs. Anderson said gently. "And trying to force him to be one would be like trying to force Emma to be neurotypical. It would only hurt him. He has a gift, and he wants to use it to help. Our job is to make sure he can do that safely." The next morning brought a flood of interview requests, donation offers, and messages from people around the world who had lost pets or wanted help with traumatized animals. Sophia's phone rang constantly until she finally turned it off. "We need a plan," Detective Ramirez said, arriving with coffee and pastries for everyone. "Lucas is about to become very famous, whether we like it or not. The story has gone international." She showed them her tablet, where news sites from around the world were running variations of the headline. "Boy who speaks to dogs, exposes fighting ring, saves dozens." "There's good news and bad news," the detective continued. "The good news is that public support is overwhelming. A GoFundMe for Lucas's education and protection has raised over $200,000 overnight. The bad news is that every animal rights organization, research facility, and entertainment company in the country wants access to him. He's not a commodity, Sophia said firmly. I know that. But we need to control the narrative before someone else does. I've been in touch with a friend who works in public relations, specifically with cases involving children in unusual circumstances. She's willing to help pro bono. As they discussed options, Lucas sat quietly with Duke and Emma, seemingly oblivious to the adults' concerns. But suddenly he looked up, that now familiar distant expression on his face. Something's happening, he said. Duke says the dogs at the other bad places know about us now. They know help might be coming. They're trying to tell their stories, but people don't understand. He stood up, walking to the window. Outside, a single dog sat on the sidewalk, looking up at their window. Then another appeared. Then another. Oh no, Sophia whispered. Not again. But Lucas shook his head. It's different this time. They're not here to protect us. They're here to ask for help. Each one knows about a dog that needs saving. Detective Ramirez pulled out her phone. How many locations are we talking about? Lucas closed his eyes, his hand pressed against the window. 17, no, 18, in 6 different states. Duke is helping me see through their eyes. There's a warehouse in Chicago, a farm in Texas, a basement in Detroit. The detective started typing rapidly. This is beyond my jurisdiction, but the FBI task force will want this information. Lucas, can you be more specific? For the next hour, Lucas provided detailed information about each location, describing buildings he'd never seen, naming streets he'd never heard of, identifying people he'd never met. Duke lay beside him, occasionally whimpering or growling as particularly disturbing images were shared. Emma held Duke's head in her lap, tears streaming down her face. I can see some of it too, she whispered. It's horrible. Those poor dogs. By noon, the FBI had mobilized teams to investigate each location Lucas had identified. Detective Ramirez stayed in constant contact, relaying updates. First location confirmed, she announced. Warehouse in Chicago had 14 dogs in cages, all alive, now being rescued. A cheer went up from everyone in the room. Lucas smiled for the first time that day. Second location confirmed. Farm in Texas, 8 dogs, 2 need immediate medical attention, but expected to survive. As the afternoon wore on, confirmation came in from location after location. Every single place Lucas had identified was real, and dogs were being saved at each one. The magnitude of what was happening began to sink in. He's dismantling a nationwide dog fighting network, Doctor, Walsh said in amazement. She had arrived an hour earlier, unable to stay away from what she called the most significant development in interspecies communication in human history. The dogs are doing it, Lucas corrected. I'm just translating. By evening, the news had exploded across every platform. The dog whisperer boy was trending worldwide. Videos of the rescued dogs were being shared millions of times. Donation sites for animal welfare organizations were crashing from the volume of traffic. But in the quiet of the emergency housing unit, a small group of people and dogs sat together, processing what had happened. Duke was stronger now, able to walk short distances. The 3 rescued dogs had been officially signed over to the Andersons for adoption once they had permanent housing, and Lucas had helped save 127 dogs in a single day. You did something amazing, Sophia told her son as she tucked him into bed. Duke did it, Lucas said sleepily. And all the other dogs. They've been trying to tell people for years, but nobody could hear them. I just happened to be listening at the right time. As he drifted off to sleep, one hand touching Duke's fur, Sophia heard him whisper something that made her heart both swell and ache. Tomorrow, we help the cats. The story was far from over. In fact, it was just beginning. The boy who could talk to animals had opened a door that could never be closed again, revealing a world of communication and connection that humans had forgotten existed. And somewhere in the darkness, in cages and kennels and lonely streets, animals everywhere began to hope that finally, someone was listening. The next morning brought an unexpected visitor. Sophia woke to find Lucas already dressed and sitting by the window, his hand pressed against the glass. Duke sat beside him, both of them staring at something outside with intense focus. "What is it, baby?" Sophia asked, joining them at the window. Below, on the sidewalk, stood a single dog, but this wasn't like the others that had come seeking help. This was a massive black German shepherd with military bearing, sitting at perfect attention despite the obvious exhaustion in its posture. One of its ears was torn, and even from the second floor, Sophia could see the scars crisscrossing its body. "He's different," Lucas whispered. "He's not asking for help. He's warning us." Before Sophia could ask what he meant, there was a knock at the door. Mr. Anderson answered it to find Detective Ramirez, her face grim. "We have a problem," she said, entering quickly. "Monarch made bail." The room went cold. Sophia instinctively pulled Lucas closer. "How?" Mr. Anderson demanded. "After everything he did?" His lawyers argued that the evidence was obtained through illegal means, that we couldn't have known about the locations without unlawful surveillance. A judge who owes Monarch favors agreed to bail with conditions. "This is insane," Mrs. Anderson said. "He threatened a child." "I know," Detective Ramirez said. "We're appealing, but in the meantime, I've assigned protection to your families." "There's something else, though. 3 more children have come forward in the last 24 hours. Children who claim they can communicate with animals like Lucas can." Lucas's head snapped up. "Really? There are others like me? A girl in Seattle who says her cat shows her things. A boy in Miami who claims birds tell him about storms before they happen. Another girl in Boston who says she can understand what horses are feeling. Their families saw the news about you and reached out." "They're in danger," Lucas said suddenly, his eyes going wide. "The dog outside, Rex, that's his name, he says the bad men know about the other children too. They're not just angry about the fighting rings. They want to use us for something else." "Use you for what?" Detective Ramirez asked, pulling out her notebook. Lucas's face scrunched up in concentration as he listened to something only he could hear. "Rex doesn't know exactly, but he escaped from a place where they were training dogs to hurt people. Military stuff, but not good military. Bad people wanting guard dogs and attack dogs. They wanted Rex to be mean, but he wouldn't do it, so they hurt him and left him to die." The detective was already on her phone, calling for backup to check on the other children. But even as she spoke, Lucas suddenly gasped, his whole body going rigid. "No, no, no!" he cried. "Emma, help me! I can't hear them all at once!" Emma rushed over, grabbing Lucas's hand. The moment they touched, she gasped too, her eyes rolling back slightly. "What's happening?" Sophia demanded, terrified. Dr. Walsh, who had been quietly observing, stepped forward. "They're receiving something, multiple signals at once from the sound of it, like trying to listen to 100 radio stations simultaneously." Lucas and Emma stood frozen for nearly a minute, their hands clasped tightly, both children trembling with the effort of processing whatever they were experiencing. Duke pressed against them, whimpering softly, and the 3 rescue dogs formed a protective circle around the children. Finally, Lucas and Emma collapsed, both children breathing hard. Lucas's nose was bleeding, and Emma was crying silently. "The other children," Lucas gasped. "The ones like me. Something's happening to them right now. The bad men are trying to take them." Detective Ramirez immediately relayed this information to her contacts. Within minutes, reports started coming in. The family in Seattle had reported an attempted break-in just minutes ago. The boy in Miami was missing, had been for 2 hours, but his parents had been afraid to call the police. The girl in Boston was safe, but only because her horse had attacked 2 men who had tried to approach her at the stable. "This is coordinated," Detective Ramirez said. "Someone's trying to grab all the children with these abilities." "Monarch," Mr. Anderson said darkly. "Or someone worse," the detective replied. "Monarch was small time compared to what we're uncovering. These fighting rings were just one part of a much larger operation." Lucas stood up shakily, Sophia supporting him. "We need to find the Miami boy. His name is Carlos. He's 7. The birds are trying to help him, but they can only do so much." "How can we find him?" Detective Ramirez asked. Lucas looked at Rex, the military dog still waiting outside. "Rex knows how they think. He was trained by them. He can help us track them." "That dog looks dangerous," Sophia said nervously. "He is dangerous," Lucas said simply, "but not to us. He chose to be good even when they tried to make him bad. That's why they threw him away. but he remembers everything: their faces, their smells, their vehicles. Detective Ramirez made a decision. I'm calling in federal support. This is beyond local jurisdiction now. Mrs. Martinez, I need you to consider protective custody for Lucas. No, Lucas said firmly. If I hide, other kids like me will get hurt. The animals are all trying to help now. Dogs, cats, birds. They're all connected, all watching. We can find Carlos and stop the bad men, but I have to be here to listen. Over the next hour, the small emergency housing unit transformed into a makeshift command center. FBI agents arrived, along with Dr. Walsh's colleagues from various animal behavior institutes. Rex was brought inside, the massive dog moving stiffly but purposefully, his eyes constantly scanning for threats. Lucas sat in the center of it all, his small hand resting on Rex's scarred head, translating a flood of information from animals across multiple states. Emma stayed beside him, helping when the flow became too intense, the two children working in tandem like they'd been doing it for years. Carlos is in a van, Lucas announced. A white van with a dent on the right side. The seagulls are following it. They're heading north on Interstate 95. An FBI agent relayed this information immediately. Within minutes, Florida Highway Patrol had spotted the van. They're trying to coordinate, Lucas continued, his eyes closed in concentration. The people who took Carlos are talking to others. They want to meet somewhere. A warehouse. Rex knows it. He was trained there. Rex suddenly stood, moving to the window and barking once, sharp and commanding. Every dog in the area seemed to respond, their barks creating a chain of sound that spread outward like ripples in a pond. What's he doing? One of the FBI agents asked. Calling for backup, Lucas said with a small smile. He's telling all the dogs in the city what the bad men smell like, what their cars sound like. Every dog in Riverside is now watching for them. The agent looked skeptical, but Dr. Walsh was frantically taking notes. This is unprecedented. We're witnessing the formation of an interspecies communication network. The implications are staggering. Found him, Detective Ramirez announced. Florida Highway Patrol has stopped the van. Carlos is safe, scared, but unharmed. 2 suspects in custody. A cheer went up, but Lucas didn't relax. There are more coming. Rex says they're angry now. They're going to try something bigger. What do you mean bigger? Sophia asked, fear creeping into her voice. Before Lucas could answer, the lights went out. The entire building plunged into darkness. Emergency lighting kicked in a moment later, casting everything in an eerie red glow. They cut the power, one of the FBI agents said, pulling out his weapon. This is an assault. Everyone stay calm and stay together. Rex growled low in his throat, positioning himself between Lucas and the door. Duke, despite his injuries, stood up, flanking Lucas's other side. The 3 rescue dogs spread out, creating a perimeter. They're coming up the stairs, Lucas whispered. 6 men. No, 7. They have weapons, but they also have something else. Cages. They brought cages. For what? Detective Ramirez asked, though she suspected she already knew. For us, Emma said quietly. They want to cage us like they cage the dogs. The FBI agents moved quickly, setting up defensive positions. Sophia pulled Lucas and Emma behind an overturned table, her arms around both children. The Andersons crouched beside them, their faces pale but determined. They could hear footsteps in the hallway now, moving with military precision. Rex's growl grew louder, and suddenly every dog in the building began barking. Not just Duke and the rescues, but every single dog in the emergency housing complex, creating a cacophony that was both warning and battle cry. The door burst open, and chaos erupted. Rex launched himself at the first intruder with devastating force, his military training evident in the precision of his attack. The FBI agents shouted commands, weapons drawn. The rescue dogs darted in and out, biting ankles and causing confusion. In the midst of it all, Lucas heard something else, a voice in his head, but not from any animal. It was Carlos, the boy from Miami, somehow reaching out across the miles. Lucas, I can hear you. The bird showed me how. There are more kids like us, lots more. They're all listening now. And suddenly, Lucas understood. He wasn't alone. Emma wasn't alone. Across the country, maybe across the world, children with this gift were connecting, their abilities amplified by their shared experience. "Emma," he said urgently, "we need to link everyone. All the kids like us. Together we're stronger." Emma nodded, understanding immediately. They clasped hands again, and this time, instead of being overwhelmed by the flood of animal voices, they directed it. They reached out to Carlos in Miami, to the girl in Seattle, to the one in Boston, and to others they hadn't even known about. A boy in Phoenix who talked to coyotes, a girl in New York who understood pigeons, twins in California who shared dreams with dolphins. The effect was immediate and stunning. Every animal in Riverside, every dog, cat, bird, even the mice in the walls, suddenly acted with unified purpose. Birds dive-bombed the attackers' vehicles outside. Cats appeared from nowhere, attacking with precision. Dogs throughout the city began howling, the sound so loud and unified that windows shook. The attackers in the room faltered, confused and frightened by what was happening. That moment of hesitation was all the FBI agents needed. In seconds, all 7 intruders were on the ground, subdued and cuffed. But Lucas wasn't done. Through the network of connected children and animals, he could feel something bigger, the source of all this. The person behind not just Monarch, but the entire operation. "There's someone else," he said, his voice distant and strange. Someone Monarch was scared of. Someone who's been doing this for years, taking animals, training them for bad things, selling them to bad people. "Who?" Detective Ramirez demanded. "What's their name?" Lucas's face contorted with effort. Rex moved closer, lending his strength to the boy's search. Duke pressed against his other side, and Emma held his hand tighter. "Vincent Blackwood," Lucas finally gasped. "He has a compound in Montana, underground facilities in 12 states. He sells trained attack animals to criminals, teaches them to fight, experiments on them to make them more aggressive. He's been watching kids like us for years, waiting until we were old enough to be useful." The FBI agents were already mobilizing, this information being relayed to the highest levels. But Lucas wasn't finished. "He's running," Lucas said. "The animals at his compound are telling me. He's destroying evidence, killing the dogs that could testify against him." "Testify?" one agent said skeptically. "Through me," Lucas said firmly. "Through us. We can tell their stories. Every animal he's hurt, we can give them a voice." Detective Ramirez was on her phone with the FBI director. After an intense conversation, she turned back to the group. "They're mobilizing teams to all of Blackwood's locations. But Lucas, they need more specific information." For the next 3 hours, Lucas and Emma, joined remotely by the other gifted children, provided detailed intelligence about Blackwood's operation. They described layouts they'd never seen, identified people they'd never met, and revealed crimes that had gone undetected for decades. The rescue operations began at dawn. One by one, Blackwood's facilities were raided. Hundreds of animals were freed, not just dogs, but exotic animals trained as weapons, birds used for smuggling, even dolphins that had been captured and sold to private collectors. Vincent Blackwood himself was arrested at the Canadian border, trying to flee with a van full of cash and forged documents. In his possession, they found something chilling: files on dozens of children around the world who showed signs of animal communication abilities, complete with plans for kidnapping and training them. As the sun rose over Riverside, Lucas stood at the window again, but this time he was smiling. The street below was full of people and animals. The dogs that had gathered to help were being reunited with their families or taken to proper shelters where they would be cared for. Rex, the military dog who had warned them, was being officially adopted by Detective Ramirez, who had fallen in love with his courage and loyalty. "We did it," Emma said, standing beside him. "We really did it." "The animals did it," Lucas corrected. "We just helped them be heard." Dr. Walsh approached them, her eyes bright with excitement. "Lucas, Emma, what you've accomplished here, it's going to change everything. The scientific community is buzzing. We're going to need to establish protocols, training programs, ethical guidelines for children with your abilities. We just want to help animals," Lucas said simply. "And you will, Doctor," Walsh assured him, "but safely, properly, with support and protection. Never again will a child with your gift be vulnerable to people like Blackwood." Over the following weeks, everything changed. The story of the children who could talk to animals became a global phenomenon. The Blackwood Files, as they came to be known, revealed a network of animal abuse and exploitation that spanned continents. Hundreds of arrests were made, thousands of animals were rescued, and new laws were passed protecting both animals and the gifted children who could communicate with them. The Anderson family found a new home, with a big yard for Duke and his 3 new companions. They lived just 2 blocks from Sophia and Lucas's new apartment, one with proper security and a spare room for when other gifted children came to visit. Lucas started attending a special program doctor. Walsh had helped establish where children with animal communication abilities could learn together, supporting each other while developing their gifts safely. Emma was part of it too, her ability growing stronger every day. But the most remarkable change was in how people began to see animals. Lucas's story had opened eyes around the world to the rich emotional and communicative lives of animals. Shelters reported record adoptions. Animal abuse cases dropped dramatically as people realized that somewhere a child might be able to hear that animal's pain and report it. 6 months after that first morning, when Lucas had heard Duke crying in the intersection, a ceremony was held at the newly renamed Riverside Animal Sanctuary, built on the site of Monarch's former compound, transformed from a place of suffering into one of healing. Lucas stood at a podium that had been lowered to his height, looking out at a crowd of hundreds. Duke sat beside him on one side, Rex on the other. Emma stood nearby with her expanded pack, and scattered throughout the crowd were the other gifted children who had been found and protected. "People ask me what it's like to talk to animals," Lucas said, his young voice carrying clearly through the microphone. "But that's not really what happens. I don't talk to them, I listen. And when you really listen, with your heart and not just your ears, you find out that animals have been trying to tell us things all along." He paused, looking down at Duke, who gazed back with those intelligent amber eyes that had first connected with his in that busy intersection. "Duke taught me something important. Love doesn't need words. It doesn't care about species or size or what anyone else thinks. Love just is. And when we open ourselves to that kind of love, amazing things happen." The crowd erupted in applause, but Lucas wasn't quite finished. "There are still animals out there who need help. Still bad people doing bad things. But now they know we're listening. The animals know that some humans can hear them, will fight for them, will be their voice. And to any kid out there who thinks they might be like me, who sometimes feels like they can understand what animals are feeling, you're not crazy. You're not weird. You're gifted. And the world needs your gift." As Lucas stepped down from the podium, something remarkable happened. Every animal in the sanctuary, the rescued fighting dogs, the therapy animals, the birds in the trees, even the cats lounging in the sun, made sound together. Not chaos, but harmony. A chorus of different voices united in one message that even those without the gift could understand. Thank you. The ceremony ended, but the work continued. Lucas and the other gifted children became known as the Bridges, connecting the human and animal worlds in ways that had been lost for generations. They helped solve crimes where animals were witnesses. They reunited lost pets with their families. They identified abuse and neglect before it became fatal. They proved again and again that animals were not property or tools, but beings with rich emotional lives deserving of respect and protection. And it all started because a 5-year-old boy stopped on a busy street corner and listened with his heart instead of his ears. 1 year later, Lucas received a letter that made him smile. It was from a girl in India who had seen his story on the news. She wrote, "Dear Lucas, my name is Priya. I am 6 years old. I can hear what elephants are thinking. Everyone said I was making up stories, but then I saw you on TV and I knew I wasn't alone. Thank you for being brave. Now I'm brave too. Yesterday I helped save a baby elephant who was stuck in a well because his mother told me where to find him. The whole village calls me the Elephant Girl now. I'm not scared anymore. Your friend Priya." Lucas showed the letter to Duke, who was now fully recovered, his fur glossy and healthy, though he still wore Emma's friendship bracelet on his collar. "We started something, didn't we?" Lucas said to his friend. Duke's tail wagged, and in that way that only Lucas could fully understand, the dog replied, "No. We continued something that was always meant to be. Humans and animals connected. You just reminded everyone how to listen." As the sun set over Riverside City, Lucas sat in his backyard with Duke, Rex, and the 3 rescue dogs who had become family. Emma was there too, along with Carlos, who was visiting from Miami, and Sarah from Seattle, who had come with her cat. They sat in comfortable silence, not needing words, feeling the connections that bound them, to each other, to the animals, to something larger than themselves. "What do you think happens next?" Emma asked. Lucas smiled, his hand resting on Duke's head. "We keep listening. We keep helping. We keep showing people that every life matters, that every creature has a story worth hearing." "And the bad people?" Carlos asked. "There are always more bad people." "Then there will have to be more good people," Lucas said simply. "More kids like us. More adults who believe, more animals who trust together. We're stronger than any bad person could ever be." Rex barked once in agreement, and soon every dog in the neighborhood had joined in. Not in alarm or aggression, but in affirmation. A declaration that they were watching, they were connected, and they would protect those who protected them. The story of the boy who could talk to dogs had become something bigger, a movement, a revelation, a bridge between worlds that had been separated for too long. And in shelters and homes, in forests and cities, animals everywhere knew that finally, someone was listening. Dr. Walsh, who had been documenting everything, would later write in her groundbreaking book about the phenomenon. "We spent centuries trying to teach animals our language, never realizing they had been patiently waiting for us to remember theirs. It took a child, a special, gifted, brave child, to remind us that communication isn't about words, it's about connection. And once that connection is made, it can never truly be broken." The ripple effects continued to spread. Veterinary schools added courses on interspecies communication. Animal welfare laws were strengthened worldwide. The Bridges program expanded to every continent, finding and protecting gifted children while they helped give voice to the voiceless. But for Lucas, the most important moment came one quiet evening when Sophia tucked him into bed. Duke was curled up on the floor beside him, Rex stationed by the door, the 3 rescue dogs scattered throughout the house like a security system with wagging tails. "Are you happy, baby?" Sophia asked, smoothing his hair back from his forehead. Lucas thought about it seriously. "I'm tired sometimes. Sad sometimes when I hear about animals that are hurting. But yeah, I'm happy, because I know why I'm different now. I know what I'm supposed to do." "And what's that?" Sophia asked, though she already knew the answer. "Build bridges," Lucas said sleepily, "between their world and ours. So that someday, maybe there won't be 2 worlds anymore. Just one world where everyone understands each other." As he drifted off to sleep, Duke raised his head and looked at Sophia. And for just a moment, she could swear she understood what those amber eyes were saying. Thank you for letting him be who he was meant to be. The story that had begun with a German shepherd lying ignored in a busy street had become something no one could have imagined. It had exposed cruelty, revealed gifts, connected souls across species and continents, and proven that sometimes the smallest voices, whether they belong to children or animals, carry the most important messages. And in the darkness, as Riverside City slept, a network of consciousness hummed quietly. Children and animals, connected by something science couldn't quite explain, but hearts had always known. They were the watchers, the protectors, the bridges between worlds. They were the proof that love and empathy transcend all. Though boundaries, Vincent Blackwood and Alexander Monarch were both serving life sentences. Their empires of cruelty dismantled piece by piece. But more importantly, the system that had allowed them to operate had been exposed and reformed. No longer could animals be disappeared into fighting rings or training facilities without someone, somewhere, hearing their distress and responding. The emergency housing where it had all escalated had been converted into the Bridge Center, where gifted children from around the world came to train, to learn, and to connect. The intersection where Lucas had first heard Duke's cries had a small memorial plaque that read, "On this spot, a boy heard what others couldn't, and changed what everyone thought was possible." But the real monument to what had happened wasn't made of stone or metal. It was made of the thousands of connections formed between humans and animals, the bonds of understanding that grew stronger every day, the network of empathy that now spanned the globe. 3 years after that fateful morning, Lucas stood before the United Nations, Duke by his side, as always. At 8 years old, he was the youngest person ever to address the General Assembly. But he wasn't there as a curiosity or a phenomenon. He was there as a translator, a bridge, a voice for those who had no voice. Every animal has a story, he told the assembly of world leaders. Every creature has feelings, fears, hopes. They've been trying to tell us for thousands of years. All we had to do was remember how to listen. The question now is, what will we do with what we hear? The resolution passed unanimously, the first international treaty recognizing animal consciousness and establishing protections based on their emotional and communicative capabilities. It was called the Duke Protocol, named after the German shepherd, whose determination to find his family had started it all. As Lucas left the UN building, reporters surrounded him, all wanting to know what was next, what other revelations might come from his gift. Lucas looked at Duke, then at Emma, who had come to support him, then at the dozens of other gifted children who had gathered. He smiled, that same pure, innocent smile he'd had at 5 years old when he had walked into traffic to save a dog. "What's next is simple," he said. "We keep listening. We keep learning. We keep building bridges. Because every connection we make, every animal we help, every person who learns to hear with their heart, they all become part of something bigger. Something that was always meant to be." As they walked away, Duke limping slightly from his old injuries but proud and strong, a murmuration of starlings formed shapes in the sky above them. To most people, it looked like random patterns, but to Lucas, Emma, and the other gifted children, the message was clear. Thank you for hearing us. Thank you for caring. The bridge is built. Now, let's cross it together. The boy who had found a German shepherd, ignored in the middle of a busy street, had become the young man who helped humanity rediscover its connection to all living things. And that connection, once reestablished, would never be broken again. In homes around the world, children sat with their pets, trying to quiet their minds and open their hearts, hoping to hear what Lucas heard. Some succeeded, adding their voices to the growing network. Others simply learned to observe more carefully, to respect more deeply, to love more fully. And in a small house in Riverside, as night fell and the city grew quiet, Lucas sat with Duke, his hand resting on the dog's graying muzzle. Duke was older now, moving slower, but the bond between them had only grown stronger. "Thank you," Lucas whispered, not needing to say more. Duke's tail wagged once, and his thoughts came through clear as ever. "No, thank you. For seeing me when everyone else looked away, for hearing me when everyone else was too busy, for showing the world that we were always here, always waiting, always hoping someone would listen." The story that had begun with tears of desperation had become tears of joy, tears of understanding, tears of connection. The boy who talked to dogs had become something more, a symbol of hope, a proof of possibility, a bridge to a better world where no cry for help goes unheard, no suffering goes unnoticed, and no love goes unacknowledged. And somewhere, in every city and town, in every shelter and home, animals raise their heads with newfound hope, knowing that finally, after so very long, someone was listening. If this incredible story touched your heart and opened your eyes to the amazing connections possible between humans and animals, please like this video and share it with everyone you know. Comment below. If you've ever felt a special connection with an animal, or if you believe your child might have this gift. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more amazing true stories that will restore your faith in humanity and the incredible bonds we share with all living creatures. Together, we can build bridges of understanding and compassion that change the world, one connection at a time.